זה מורכב?
So you translate?
No, I translate it. No.
Translate, if necessary. Boker Tov. So nice to be here today. I'm going to speak to you today in English, which I believe most people understand English. My wife, Alla, she suggested that I should translate my words into the national language of Israel, but I told her my Russian isn't that good, so I better stick to English. My wife is Russian, and she wishes she could have joined me here today as well. Firstly, as the official American ambassador of the Weisz family, I bring you regards and greetings from all corners of the United States. From my daughter Lily and her husband Jed in New York, from my son and daughter-in-law Sandy and Sarah, from my two grandchildren Ezra and Zella in Chicago, from my son Oliver in New Orleans, who by the way his latest movie won the top prize at the Sundance Film Festival, I'm very happy to announce. From Alla, my wife, and our three sons in West Palm Beach in Florida. From, that's Max, Martin, and Andrew. And by the way, everyone is invited next summer, August 2013, to the Kotel for Martin's Bar Mitzvah, Menachem's Bar Mitzvah. So we hope to see you all there at the Kotel. From Ilana and Isaiah Cooperstein in Indianapolis, and their sons, Adam and his wife Michael in Miami, and his brother Dan in New York. From Jack and Danielle Isaac and their three children in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. From Yisrael and Parisa Kesari and their son Nadav in Indianapolis. From my mother's family, the Blyers in Chicago, that's Juji and Danny, Michael, Caroline, Ellie, Anna, Ben, and Rebecca. All of the growing Weisz family sends its love to you and its regards. I would also like to welcome our dear friends, the two people who my late father considered, as I also considered, to be honorary members of our family, Hart and Simona Haston of Indianapolis and Anne of Jerusalem. Welcome as well. So nice that you're here. I'd also like to thank my cousin Yaakov Friedman for organizing this special memorial event to mark my father's 10th yahrzeit. It is indeed fitting, and it's proper, that this ceremony be held here in Yad Vashem, here in Yerushalayim, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. For although Zoli's body is buried in America, his heart is here, and it always was here, surrounded amidst the one thing he cherished more than anything else in the world, his beloved family. He was painfully aware of how our family history in Eretz Yisrael got its beginning. How a few pitiful stragglers, such as this man, somehow managed to escape the fate that Hitler had planned for them, and how they struggled to the shores of what was British Mandate Palestine and then later the State of Israel. And they began little by little to rebuild their lives, their families, their way of life. And how it was this phenomenon, repeated over and over and over again, that succeeded in building a nation, a strong nation. To my father, every birth of a new baby in our family was a victory over Hitler. Every wedding was a vindication. Every grandchild was a gift. You know, those who knew him and remember him knew him to be a grandiose figure, but at the same time, he could be humble. At the same time, he understood that the success that he achieved in America was not merely the result of his own hard work, his shrewdness, and his intellect. He acknowledged frequently that his success must be shared by the entire family, who were busy building a strong Jewish nation in Israel. A nation who would put meaning into the words that we see all around us, the words never again. It is fitting that we meet at this time in history as well, when another neo-Hitler has announced and arisen and said that his plans to rid the world of all the Jews. But unlike during those dark years, when the Jews could only sit by helplessly and watch as their fate was determined by others and how their destruction was planned, and carried out. Today, things are far different. Today, Ahmadinejad knows that he may easily wind up riding on the same bus as Gaddafi and Mubarak. Today, tyrants tremble as they are aware and as they confront the force that is much more powerful than any atomic weapon. And what I'm talking about is the natural human hunger for liberty. I'm talking about the thirst for individual freedom that is rocking the world today as never before. And this is something that Zoli predicted would happen. And like many of his predictions, how right he was. As his son and his business partner for 30 years or more, I learned many valuable lessons at his side. One was an admiration for a man named Menachem Begin. And it is to preserve Menachem Begin's legacy that brings me to Jerusalem today. My father and the late Prime Minister shared a cohesive and a consistent worldview. They were both disciples of Zeb Jabotinsky, and they understood that only through strength can we dissuade our enemies from attacking us. Another talent that I learned from my father was the game of poker. And he was a marvelous poker player. He taught me everything. And I don't mean just at the gambling table. No, I'm talking about throughout life. He could bluff, and he could outwit anyone that he would encounter in any arena. And I learned some of those poker skills that I still employ today. I recall telling him a story once that I heard about Menachem Begin and poker. This was during the Camp David discussions in Washington in 1979, and Zbigniew Brzezinski, National Security Advisors, asked him if he ever played poker. And Begin responded, only one time. It was during the war, and I was with a bunch of resistance fighters, and we were told that the following morning at 8 o'clock, they were going to come and arrest us all and take us to Siberia. So we decided to stay up the entire night and play poker. And we played poker all night long till 8 o'clock in the morning when they took us off to jail. And I always regretted that, Begin said. I always regretted it because we wasted our time. We could have been studying Torah. We could have been doing something productive. Instead, we were wasting our time playing poker. And I promised myself I would never play the game again. And I told the story to my father, and he looked at me and he thought, he said, you know, I'll bet he lost. I'll bet he lost. So this was kind of his point of view, and I'm sure he did. We gather today not only to commemorate the passing of a decade on the calendar, but also the passing of a beloved member of our family, Moshe Mendelovich. May his family be comforted among the mourners of Yerushalayim and Zion. 10 years ago, the world was a much different place. The euro was just being introduced, and it was said it was going to stabilize the economies of Europe and bring about widespread prosperity throughout Europe. Well, we know how that turned out. 10 years ago, there were plans for a quick incursion by the U.S. military into Afghanistan to clean up the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda operatives there. Well, it was expected to last a few months, but we know how that turned out. El Al, 10 years ago, Israel's national airline, was sold into private ownership in order to eliminate the bankruptcy and a move that was expected to return the airline to profitability. And as you know, things didn't go as planned there as well. Things don't always work out as planned. And that's a lesson that I have learned many times over since Zoli's passing. But there are a few things in this life that do remain constant and predictable. One of them is the memory that all of us in this family hold in our hearts of Zoli and the many things that he did to benefit and to support our family. I try to communicate this feeling of respect, of beauty, of hadar, when I look into the eyes of his youngest grandson, his youngest grandchild, Andrew Zoltan Weisz, my 8-year-old son. And he never met Zoli, but he bears his name with great pride. In conclusion, let me point out that often, when all is said and done, more has been said than done. But that was not the case in the case of my father. while he did speak eloquently and from the heart whenever he was given a microphone, it was his deeds, his actions, that formed the legacy that we honor here today. In this sense, while he was not a pious man, he was certainly a righteous one. And so, as we gather today to celebrate his memory, let us all say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of this righteous man be a blessing. Amen.
Amen.
Good job.
Video, high definition video.
ובעברית, אני מקווה שיבינו. קודם כל זה כיף ותמיד מרגש להיפגש משפחה, וכמה שאנחנו שורדים מפעם לפעם, אנחנו ממש, אני מרגיש שאנחנו הממשיכים של המורשת וממשיכי הצוואה שזולי הלחין לנו לשמור על אחדות המשפחה. אני באופן אישי, אני לא יודע, חלק מכם רואים, אוסף את כל תמונות המשפחה, סרטים, מעלה את זה ליוטיוב, מעלה לפיקאסה ושולח לכל מי שרוצה לראות תמונות וסרטים שליוו אותנו במהלך חיי המשפחה, וזה למעשה הזיכרונות שיש לנו, ואתם יכולים לראות ולצפות, ומי שרוצה לקבל קישורים, אני אשמח אם תיתנו לי מיילים ואני אשלח לכם. בנוסף, מה שאני עושה כיום, ישנה עמותת דור ההמשך של ניצולי השואה, שאני התנדבתי להיות אחד הפעילים בה ואחד המוליכים של העמותה הזו, וביחד עם העמותה הזו אני היום מקים אתר הנצחה לכל כמעט יהדות, כל הנספים שהיו בשואה. הפרויקט הזה יפורסם בחודש הבא ביום השואה, שזה יהיה אתר שכל אחד יכול להעלות את זכר משפחתו, את זכר האנשים שנספו, להעלות תמונות, להעלות קישורים, וכל אחד יוכל לראות שם את הקשרים ואת האילן יוחסין ואת כל מי שליווה את הנספה במהלך חייו. אז אתם הראשונים לדעת, ושתשמעו את זה, תדעו שזה יצא בגלל המורשה ובגלל מה שהוטמע בנו לזכור ולא לשכוח את זכר השואה. אז אני באמת מקווה שאנחנו נמשיך להיפגש כל שנה, או לפחות כל תקופה, ותמיד נזכור את המורשה ואת הצבא שציוו עלינו לא לשכוח את זכר השואה.
A történetet, ami történt, mielőtt a pénzt kaptuk Zolitól. Nagyon el voltunk keseredve, mert a harmadik emeleten laktunk, és Mihály már 3 hónapot nem tudott lemenni, mert lement, de nem tudott vissza feljönni, mert már 90 és valamennyi éves volt. És mint a gyerekek törték a fejüket, mi a tendő, azt mondták, megyünk házbérbe, és kiadjuk a miénket. Hát jártak utána, próbálkoztak jobbra-balra, egyszer csak kapok egy levelet, egy nagy örömlevelet Gizikétől és Zolitól, hogy egy nagyon szép nagy ajándékot küldenek nekünk. És mondom a gyerekeknek, nézzétek, mit kaptam Zolitól, meg Gizikétől. Azt mondja a kicsi lányom, anyu, ezt te semmi egyébre nem költöd, csak veszel egy házat, liftel, hogy tudjon apu lemenni. Hát mondom, ez nagyon jó volna. Hát elkezdtek keresni házakat. Pont a szomszédba, a kicsi lányom mellett találtak egy kis édesházat, és ahhoz el kellett adni én az enyémet is, azt megvenni, és arról együtt kijött nekem egy nagyon szép kis ház, lifter második emeleten. És olyan szerencsénk volt a kiadni a mi régi házunkat, és azonnal meg tudtuk venni Eszter, mind az összes gyerekek dolgoztak benne. És akkor beköltöztünk, és mostan a férjem meg betegedett, akkor le tudott menni. De azután már kitörte a csipőit, akkor már nem tudott otthon maradni. Úgyhogy élvezte a házat, vagy 3 hónapot. De 3 hónap után leesett és eltörte a lábát. Akkor már nem volt mentség, kellett tegyük egy kórházba. Betettük egy kórházba, és hozzá egy filippini asszony volt, mert volt neki biztosítása. Gyűjtöttük a pénzt, hogy legyen neki biztosítása. És így aztán ő volt a nagyon jó helyen, és egy filippinivel is szép öregsége volt. Meghalt 98 éves korában, de nem hiányzott neki semmi. Minden a legszebb, a legjobb volt. De most már látom, hogy nem csak Zoli meg Gizike voltak nagyon jók, de már a fia is kezd az ő lépésükön járni. Már jön meglátogatni a gyerekeket, a rokonokat, mindenkit, és már összegyűlnek az öregek, már hiányoznak belőlük póvosán, de jönnek, nehezen is jönnek, mert akarnak látni, és elértük a 4 generációt, és mindnyájan jól vagyunk, és boldogak vagyunk, nektek köszönhessük.
לזכרו של זולי, כבר 10 שנים שאינך איתנו זולי, ועדיין דמותך וטוב לבך מלווה אותנו ונצרב עמוק בליבנו. לא נוכל לשכוח את העובדה שהיית לנו תמיד משלת חזקה. בהיותנו עולים חדשים, ללא קרובי משפחה שיוכלו לעזור כשלא ידענו את השפה והרגשנו אבודים עם ילדה בת 2 ותינוקת שזה עתה נולדה, אתה היית זה שדאג לנו למצרכים ראשונים, למקרר ולביגוד חם. אבל הכי חשוב היה העידוד הלבבי שחיזק אותנו מאוד ונתן לנו כוח להמשיך. אמרת שבשל היותנו צעירים נצליח להתגבר ונשרוד, וצדקת. דאגת כל שנה לבקר ולעקוב אחר התקדמותנו. כינסת מפגשים עם שאר הקרובים שגם להם דאגת, והשתדלת להשתתף בכל השמחות המשפחתיות. חיזקת את הקשר עם כל הקרובים וגרמת לנו לשמור על המורשת היהודית. תחושת השייכות למשפחה הייתה נר לרגליך. דאגת לחקור ולהוציא ספר על חיי המשפחה שמהווה עדות וזיכרון לדורות הבאים. היום יש גם אתר בפייסבוק, בזכותך הקשר קיים גם היום. על כל פועליך נודה לך תמיד. יהיה זכרך ברוך.
As you heard, my name is Hart Haston. I'm here with my wife Simona, and from Indianapolis, Indiana. And Zoli and Yizzy were our best friends. We were here to celebrate, in Israel we were here when he celebrated his 70th birthday. And some of you may remember me, I probably have aged a lot. And now I have a beard, before I didn't. But the main thing what I would like to share with you is the great friendship between us. We were actually in the hospital 10 years ago when Zoltan passed away. And when he took his last breath, we actually went in the room and we saw him. We miss him a lot, to this day. I learned a great deal from him. We agreed almost on everything, even on politics. And he was a great politician. He should have been a professor of political science. He understood politics probably better than anyone that I met, and I met a lot of people. So why was the friendship so close? Because we saw eye to eye on many issues. But the most important thing about Zoli is, and there are many successful people in America that made a lot of money. He knew how to spend the money. And that's where we are so close, because we understood each other, what family means to us. We understand those of us who survived the Holocaust, although I was in a concentration camp, but we survived in the Soviet Union. So the family means so much, and money is important if you use it in a certain way. He knew how to do it. And this is why I see the turnout today. Do you know how difficult it was to get here? We know, with a marathon and everything, but you showed up. You're here. Why? Because of his character and his understanding of what family means. And then we have so many other things in common. We mentioned Menachem Begin. Now, Menachem Begin was a great friend of ours, and we are the ones that invited him to Indianapolis. He was the Sunday of our son. He was twice in Indianapolis. Of course, Zoltan was right there, you know. And also, the same way, Menachem Begin had the same feeling, because he also was a survivor. He survived it, as you probably know, in this Siberia, and then, of course, he was the commander of the Zoli Weisz, which I was a member as a 16-year-old boy. That's when I first heard the name of Menachem Begin. So we understood each other so well, and he understood why is it Menachem Begin, because Menachem Begin, who was a disciple of Jabotinsky, said, "You're not going to have a country. Nobody's going to hand it to you. You got to fight for it, and some of us have to die for it." And we were ready to do that for Menachem Begin. And he understood that. And then the other thing is that he helped us a great deal in establishing a school in Indianapolis. Why? So we can teach our children and grandchildren. And by the way, I must tell you something, how important it was to him. He wanted to make sure that his grandchildren are Jewish. And he put it in his tziva'ah, that if you go out and you marry somebody that is not Jewish, you're out. We don't want you. And he made it so sure. And thank God, so far, he's been successful. Very few families can claim that they are successful, that they have now Jewish grandchildren. He does, because he made sure of that. So education meant a great deal to him. We need to establish a school. And he was the first one we solicited to the school, and I remember that Peter was there, and he said, "This is so important." And then when we established a foundation to help the school, he became the president of that foundation, because it meant so much to him for Jewish education. So I really am not prepared to give speeches, but it's in my heart. I have to tell you how much we miss him. We miss him so much. Both him and Gizik. Gizik also was a dear, dear friend of ours, and we miss them both so much. So from Indianapolis, I want to tell you, it isn't just myself and my wife Simona, but the whole community misses him, because he was such a wonderful man, had such a big heart, and as I said, he knew how to use money for the good purpose, not just, So tzedakah meant a great deal to him, and just to remember him 10 years later meant so much. When I heard that Peter says we are going to Jerusalem, I said, we'll be there, and we're here, and it's so nice to see you, and we want to say to you, thank you so much, and we will never forget it. Thank you.
שומעים אותי? אוקיי, יופי. קודם כל אני שמח שהגעתם כל כך יפה, וברוך השם כמה מזג האוויר ישתנה לנו, אז ככה שנוכל להתחיל. חברי משפחה יקרים, אורחים נכבדים, ברצוני להודות לכם ביחד ולכל אחד לחוד על השתתפותכם בטקס האזכרה לציון 10 שנים לפטירתו של יקירנו זולי וייס ולזכרם של אחיו ואחיותיו שנספו במחנה השמדה של גרמניה לפני 67 שנים. מאז שהנאצים הגרמנים ניסו להשמיד אותנו עד התינוק האחרון, גדלו בארץ ישראל 3 דורות, אבל את הזוועות אנחנו לא נשכח לעולם. יד ושם הוא המקום היחיד בעולם ששומר על הזיכרון שעבר העם היהודי ומלמד את הדורות הבאים אחרי המלחמה את העבר שלנו כדי שלא תהיה עוד שואה לעולם. את זולי אנחנו זוכרים שפעל בכל כוחו למען שמירת הזיכרון של השואה. כל אורך חיו הוא קירב את המשפחה שלנו ופעל רבות גם בקרב הקהילה שלו באינדיאנפוליס. זולי אסף את המשפחה שנותרה אחרי אושוויץ, ועודד אותנו ועזר לנו להיקלט בישראל. וגם במאמצים לשמור על הזיכרון של המשפחה, הוא הוציא לאור ספר שורשים של משפחתנו, שבה רשמו כל שמות המשפחה שנספו בשואה, וגם את אלו ששרדו והקימו משפחות חדשות לארץ ישראל. הוא פעל רבות כדי לטפח את רגשות המשפחה, להיות ביחד, והשתתף בכל השמחות המשפחתיות והגיע אלינו מעבר לים. הוא חגג איתנו את יום ההולדת שלו, ב-70 ו-75, בארץ ובקיסריה, אירועים מיוחדים שלא נוכל לשכוח לעולם. היו עוד הרבה מפגשים, אך מפאת הזמן הקצר לא אוכל לפרט את כל מה שעשה למען רווחת המשפחה. בקהילה שלו באינדיאנפוליס הקים ביחד עם חבר שלו, מיסטר הייסטן, בית ספר יהודי והביא מורים בישראל שילמדו עברית וינחילו את אהבת הארץ. הוא היה פעיל בארגון של יהדות באמרי והיה חבר בהנהגה. אנו, בני אחיו ואחיותיו, הקמנו לזכרון וכאות תודה לפעול לפעלו את רוח הזיכרון ביד ושם בירושלים. כדי שנוכל להיפגש מדי שנה ולזכור את זולי ויקירינו שנספו באושוויץ. להזכיר לעולם שנוטה לשכוח ורצה להחיש את קיומה של השואה, שלא ניתן שיקרה שוב לעולם. תודה לכם על ההקשבה. מי שעוד רוצה להגיד משהו, מתבקש להגיע למיקרופון.